Last year, I had an idea for a video called Draft to Draft, the most dominant faction. I wanted to see which faction got the most wins over other factions. I planned on doing it every year, but this year they didn't do a draft. Whether that was because of the coronavirus or because they just decided to stop doing it, it made me forget that I was going to do the video altogether. The rules, because all of my videos have rules to make it easier on myself and you guys. This time, since there is no draft this year, I went from the show after the draft last year to April of this year. The basis of the video is that every time a member of one faction pinned or submitted another member of a different faction, it counted as a win over that faction. So if a triple threat happened between Azumi, Starlight Kid, and Death Yama-san, and Azumi pinned Starlight, then Queen's Quest would have a win over Stars, and TCS would have neither a win or a loss. I only counted official members of the faction, so foreigners just teaming up with one team more than the others didn't count for that team, like Layla Hirsch. Foreigners like Jamie count, of course, since they were drafted. So let's get to it. As you can see here, I have every faction here lined up. DDM, because they were really only created at the beginning of this year, they don't have a lot of statistics, especially for 2019. When comparing all of these, don't really compare them to DDM because DDM has a ridiculous record right now because they're very dominant. I'm going to start with Queen's Quest and go down the line. So for Queen's Quest, the wins, they have 19 wins over TCS, 19 wins over Odotai, 22 wins over Stars, and 0 wins over DDM. TCS has 28 wins over Queen's Quest, 23 wins over Odotai, 30 wins over Stars, and 1 win over DDM. Odotai has 29 wins over TCS, 31 wins over Queen's Quest, 38 wins over Stars, and 0 wins over DDM. Stars has 25 wins over TCS, 29 wins over Odotai, and 32 wins over Queen's Quest, and 0 wins over DDM. DDM has a total of 2 wins over TCS, 2 wins over Odotai, 2 wins over Stars, and 3 wins over Queen's Quest. I messed up and I would have to redo like 6 of these to redo it, but DDM does have 3 wins over Queen's Quest, even though it says 2. As you can see, just total wins and whatnot, Queen's Quest is not looking too good. They're actually doing almost terrible. They have almost 10 more losses than wins over TCS. They have way more than 10. I think it's like 12 more losses than wins over Odotai, and 10 more losses than wins over Stars. Queen's Quest did terrible from last year's draft to this year in terms of wins, but a lot of that had to do with Hina and Leo. If you guys remember, Leo kind of took the pin in any match that she was in. No matter like what, it just seemed like she was taking the pin. So they ended up losing a lot of matches because of those two, unfortunately. So let's get into the win percentages and loss percentages of 2019. Now, I didn't want to go through and do each one of these one by one like I did for the wins and losses. So they're all just going to pop up here at the same time. I'm going to talk about them. Feel free to read ahead if you want. So as you can see, the win percentages for 2019. For Queen's Quest, they only won 38.52% of their matches in 2019, meaning they lost 61.48% of their matches. TCS won 53.33% and lost 46.67%. Odotai won 57.55% and lost 42.45%. Stars won 49.34% and lost 50.66%. And DDM has 0 matches in 2019 because DDM wasn't founded until 2020. I counted the Shitty's debut where the name DDM or Donna Domando was debuted as the start of Donna Domando. So that's why. And that happened in 2020. As you can see, Queen's Quest did abysmal, like really, really bad. I honestly didn't think it was going to be that bad going into this. Because last year, Queen's Quest actually did really good, and John did terrible. And we know what happened to John. TCS and Odotai are the only two that have positive win percentages, with Odotai coming out on top for 2019. And Stars barely, they're pretty much a 50-50 split. Now, if you remember last year from last year's video, Stars actually had some of like the worst record because they had so many people. So they had a lot of people losing. Now, let's move on to the win percentage and loss percentage of 2020. As you can see, Queen's Quest did not improve very much. They won 40.63% and lost 59.38%. TCS won 45.45 and lost 54.55, going from a positive to a negative win rate as the year happened. Now, whether that is because of all of the things that happened, I don't know. I always felt like they were doing okay for themselves, but as you can see, there's a considerable drop in terms of win percentage here in relation to 2019. Odotai's win was 56.25 and lost 43.75. Them still coming out on top. I believe they are the only win percentage in the positives for 2020, not counting DDM. Stars win percentage was 42.31 and lost 57.69%. Not very much of a surprise. They did drop a little bit compared to 2019, but Stars has a lot of members. Or at least they used to. They kind of have the same amount of members now as every other team. DDM, of course, have a 90% win rate with a 10% loss rate. As you can see, they won 2, 4, 6, 9 matches and lost 1. Remember, the Queen's Quest win was 3, not 2. The last one that I will show will have that updated. Now let's move on to the total overall. Now this next one is going to count from the match after last year's draft all the way up until the last show before April. Because of the coronavirus and everything, they actually didn't have any shows in April or anything like that. So I believe the last show was like the Cinderella tournament. Queen's Quest with an abysmal 38.96% win rate and loss rate of 61.04%. TCS coming out in the positives at 52.23% with a loss rate of 47.77%. And Odotai as the winners, not counting DDM, the win percent of 57.31% with a loss rate of 42.69%. And Stars barely missing the 50-50 split of 48.31% win rate with a 51.69 loss percentage. And DDM's win and loss percentage is the same as their 2020 because they only have matches in 2020. As you can see, Odotai had a phenomenal year from last year to this year. Compared to the rest of them, they were the only faction to have a positive win and loss rate in all 3 sections. The closest would be TCS, who had winning percentages in 2 of these sections. Stars with almost a even win percentage in all 3 sections. And then Queen's Quest is in dead last, like not even close, 38.96% win percentage. Compared to the next lower is 10 points higher. Queen's Quest just did abysmal. There's really nothing I can say about it. I mean, it's kind of shocking and a little upsetting because Queen's Quest is my favorite faction. Two of my top 5 favorite wrestlers right now are from Queen's Quest, Momo and Azumi. So it sucks to see that. Hopefully, with Queen's Quest just winning the tag belts and Azumi having the high speed belt, this year they're going to have a much better time. So, what did you think was the biggest shock, and what did you see coming a mile away? Because last year we kind of all assumed that John was going to be dead last, and this year it was shockingly Queen's Quest, because Queen's Quest did very, very good last year. I'd like to give a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters, Smackdown Podcast, Miss Solar, and The Yellow Hook. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it. I hope you like my video. And I hope the rest of you liked my video as well. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.